Well, hey guys, Michael and Dano out here with Tracy Robinson on Neely Henry, trying to see if we can find a few elusive bass. So guys, if you're watching us down the road, we're going to do some Q&A, and hopefully you get something out of it. Hopefully you learn something about fishing here or in our area or anywhere where you are. So we'll give it a sec and let some folks jump on. All right.
No.
Yeah, everybody. So this is going to be the live retying show with Tracy Robinson and Dan O'Sullivan. Hey guys, a couple of you I see jumping on. Somebody let me know that you can hear me, that the audio is good. Dan, what are you tying on?
I'm well, it's a straight shank hook, so I'm gonna do a snell knot on here.
All right.
Just as we started fishing, just as we started getting ready to go live, I hung up my little cricket and I said, maybe I won't retie, and then I went, you know what? It'll happen and it'll break off, and I'll know why.
Nice, nice.
So I decided I'm going to retie.
Tracy, what are you starting out with?
I'm starting out with a little tube there, so
all right.
make a brim out there a little bit.
All right.
And I've got a rage craw on.
Gotcha.
But I've noticed that Tracy, both things that he's played with while we're here are straight little action stuff, so me selecting the rage craw may not be the best deal. It's post spawn. I think there's still going to be a spawn happen because just the way the weather has been, the water levels, and then we've got a moon phase coming that is, it's good for spawn.
All right.
But so I don't think the entire spawn is done, but
all right.
But largely right now, I think just the conditions, they're in a funk. Would you agree, Tracy?
I agree. I think,
and that's everywhere, not just here.
There's some version of the spawn I think has been going on for about 2 months. I mean, just like there's late spawners, there was early spawners 2 moons ago. So, Dano mentioned the upcoming moon. A lot of spawn activity is going to be related to that, but there's just several different versions of what's going on these lakes right now. There's pre-spawners, post-spawners, spawners, but a lot of transitioning going on.
Gotcha. All right. Well, those of you that are watching, just let me know. Somebody put in the comments that the audio is decent, that you can hear all three of us. I don't want to sit out here for 2 hours and give away all the secrets of Neely Henry and none of it be recorded. So Barry Descaro says, hello, Tracy, long time.
Hey, Barry, throwing some of your baits today.
Audio good. All right, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, well, let's get into the live here. So again, I'm Michael behind the camera, and we got Dano, and we grabbed our pro staffer Tracy Robinson, who was diligently out pre-fishing last night, as I understand it. But jumped on, put his skeeter in the water, and we're out here on Neely Henry trying to see if we can make something happen. It is beautiful weather, 83 degrees and sunny. What's the water temp we're starting out with?
We're looking at about 75.
75. All right, so for those of y'all, I know it's been a while since we've really done one of these on the water, but you asked the questions, and I'm not going to answer any of them. So that's what we got.
They're in your wheelhouse.
We got the experts here, so we'll talk about what y'all want to talk about. I'm sure Tracy's got a few, always has a few good tips to throw out here on Neely. So. But guys, yeah, start getting the questions in. I wouldn't mind if you'd hit that share button we'd appreciate that. And one thing we didn't talk about before we went live, so I kind of forced the answer by doing it live. Are we gonna give anything away on out of the loft? Maybe a little
gift cards. We'll just do a couple $25 gift cards.
All right. See, guys, I'm here for you. I'm gonna put Dan on the spot.
He's going in. Well, we're putting Colin on the spot.
So, guys, the way we're gonna do that, again, if you haven't done one of these with us, we got to have a comment in. So hit that comment and share, and then at the end we'll go through the comments. Even if you can't watch the whole time, if you've commented, we'll go through and pick one at random and get you give away a couple of $25 gift cards to the loft.
We'll do a drawing, and then they got to respond on Facebook with a, "Hey, I won something."
So, all right.
All right. So Tracy, let's talk typical general time of the year. What are we looking for? What makes the bite bad? What makes the bite good? And then how do you compensate for difficulties?
We've already talked a little bit about being in all stages of the spawn. So I'm going to contradict myself a little bit by saying what I'm going to say. I think the majority of them have already spawned. So I think we're mostly chasing a post-spawn bite right now. Meaning that most of these big females have already given birth. They did that up in these shallow pockets and flats. We're now sitting out here right outside of one of these major spawning areas just around the corner there. And we're looking for one of those sluggish females out here just kind of sitting waiting to transition to that next chapter, the summertime ledge type stuff. We're out here a little deeper. Neely's probably not as common of a ledge lake. It's more of a bank type bite, junk fishing type lake, but they still head out into this more open water where the current's rolling and where it's got the more oxygen. The bite's going to be super tough today, just like it has been for the past week on this lake and all the lakes around here. So it's not going to be a day where we're going to jump out here and probably catch a ton of fish, but just being patient, slowing down, throwing something up there that, enticing to these fish. Just kind of getting back healthy from the spawn. And that's the fish that we're kind of looking for, is just those that are just coming off the bed and need something to eat. So, pretty simple tactics, just pitching plastics along the bait of the bank. I'm throwing something that probably represents a little bit more of a bluegill type bait. You're throwing something probably more crawfish type. So we'll see if they like one over the other. Just go up through here, fishing a little junk, some grass, some poles, some rocks, wood, just a little bit of everything.
But right now, the primary thing to do in the mornings is focus on a shad spawn, right? You try to make hay early.
Yeah. If we would have got out here earlier, that's 100% where we would have been, is looking for some kind of shad spawn on some of these banks. We'll try to take advantage of that.
Are you looking more grass for that, or are you looking seawalls? What kind of stuff are you looking for?
They will use all of it for the shad spawn. Typically, the seawall seems to be a little more productive. I think they can corral the bait up a little bit better on the seawalls. The grass, it gives the bait a little bit more of an advantage, being able to dart in and out of the grass and hide a little bit better. Not many places to go up against that concrete, so those always seem to be a little more productive for me for even hooking up on the fish.
All right. So Barry's, I guess it has been a little while. Barry said he sold a company 2 years ago, and now he gets to fish more. Bought a Falcon F205, and probably one of the best riding boats out there. Bought it from us at Bucks Island. Well, thank you, Barry, first off. And yeah, I know Dano's a big Falcon fan.
I love him.
He's been running one the last few years. And then somebody said that's a good-looking joker in the black shirt. Hope y'all whack him.
Who's that?
Salida Vissering?
Seems like a screen.
So I don't know. Maybe you got a stalker. All right. So here's a fishing question. Do you all skip wacky rigs on those docks a lot?
I'll be honest with you guys. I tend to try to do something different. My longtime friend and tournament fishing partner, Jeff Boundy is a Senko nut, and absolutely he does. Believe it or not, coming from the West Coast.
It's Jeremy Smith is your stalker.
There you go. I struggle with the patience on a Senko. So that's a good one. It's a good one, Coach Jones. Come on, bounce that thing. Look at you. So they like the bluegill so far. That thing's a little chopped.
Wait, now you said we weren't going to catch anything.
I didn't say we weren't going to catch anything. I just said it's going to be a little tough.
Nice.
A nice little fat one.
So was he off that first little roll right here?
Yeah, as soon as I pulled it off that first little lip there, he took off.
That's what we love to see. Is our superstars put them in the boat.
So that was mimicking an old bluegill, huh?
That's a craw tube is what that is.
Crawl tube.
But
So I'm going to ask the question, what are your thoughts on, are there any more hanging out with them in that area?
I don't see a lot of fish like group up on Neely, period. Do you?
No, I don't. You know, a couple of times this time of year, you'll get a bed up there. The males, doing their part of the process, and every now and then I'll see.
That was the male.
Yeah,
Wow.
that was the male right there. Every now and then when I'm looking at these fish, 2 or 3 weeks ago when they were on bed, you'll see maybe 2 sometimes in the same bed, but for the most part, they're individual fish we're catching.
If that was the male, I want to see that female.
Bet you got a big old honey.
Thing built like me.
And for those of y'all going fishing on Neely later this week, I'll give you a pan around so you can see exactly where we are. So there you go.
It's funny how you do that though. You come through and you're hitting every little pole and target and everything, and you throw one right up in the middle, and there it is. Maybe that says we think too much.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard the poles when I hit the bottom back there.
It was roll rock. Hard bottom. Yeah, I listen for that kind of stuff when I'm on the water too.
All right, guys, for those of you that have just joined us in the last few minutes, we are going to be giving away a couple of gift cards to the loft, so some tackle gift cards. So in order to be eligible for that, we need you to drop a question. You got to make a comment, and we'll scroll through and pick at random. So the more you comment, some have figured this out over the time we've been doing these. The more you comment, the better chance you have of winning something. So but let's see what you guys want to talk about. So get a question in there, please.
What is your just conditions are not good, no current. What's your approach on a lake like this that is so current dominated? What do you do? Because it seems like tournament time, Alabama Power goes, shut off the turbines.
Well, you mentioned one of the keys already, just that early shad spawn deal this time of year. So that's kind of a gimme for most all these tournament guys is chasing that shad spawn as long as you can. So after that's over is kind of when it gets, it gets tough. At that point, I'll look for just any piece of structure. These pier poles, we're doing exactly what you're asking me right now. Is just looking for anything. Fish in general, bass, they're going to relate to structure. These fish, no matter what time of year it is, they like to have their nose up against something. Especially on these muddier lakes like Neely Henry. Maybe this isn't considered muddy, but a lot of stain in the water. Those fish like to be related to something. So I just started attacking structure, and I fished with some of the better fishermen around here, the Terry Tuckers, Lynn Johnsons, and those guys, and that's what they do, and I kind of learned from them. One time I'd come down here and I'd be the youngest guy down here, and just kind of watching and learning from them, but just picking apart just trash, little piece of stick, just the smallest little something that those fish can get up against whenever it's just brutal stuff like this.
What's the deepest you'll fish?
Neely Henry, I never fish over 5 foot. I say never loosely. Every now and then there might be a situation where I'll jump out on a river bar for 8 or 10 foot, but I can't tell you one time in a tournament I fished over 5 foot on this lake.
All right. What's your favorite color for bedfish?
Green pumpkin. If green pumpkin doesn't work, tie on green pumpkin. Some of these guys, I see them use some different colors. I know they'll catch them on different colors, but for me, I just stick with green pumpkin.
White, obviously that's for the fishermen to see. But I think so many fish for so long have been seeing that they kind of get wary. I like, and I found a cool trick the other day that Pete Pond showed me. But there's these little crappie nugget type things that you can use a natural bait, and if you need to see the bait to be able to see the strike, you can put a little piece of color on the hook above, right by the bait. And but for the most part, what Tracy's saying is that natural colors seem to do better because the fish get bombarded with white stuff. And the chartreuse and all those things. But what happens is the guys tend to watch their line for movement more than they watch the bait, because it helps too with foul hooked fish, because if you're watching the bait and the fish goes in front of your lure in somewhat dingy water, you may respond and snag that fish on accident. If you're watching line and it starts to swim away, that fish has it in its mouth. So ultimately, that's what a lot of guys do. I will give you one tip. Don't use any of those camouflage lines on when you're bed fishing. It makes it really hard to see.
Do you target ladders and stairs more than dock poles?
That's a very good question, because I 100% do. My partner, Willie Staten, one of the better flippers I've ever fished with as far as that kind of fishing, he'll tell you the same thing. But those stairs will create a lot more shade, up at vertical than what those poles do.
Just the complexity of something.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you, since we're sitting on a boat with some live scope, have you been able to use a live scope and actually look at that and see those differences?
I haven't, Michael, and I don't use live scopes so much when I'm doing this right here on this lake. At Smith Lake over in Coleman, end of the pier may be 150 foot deep, and those fish aren't down there on bottom. And they're not really relating to the poles. They're all floating piers. I will 100% use the live scope fishing those docks over there, those floating docks. And I can pull up to the dock, scan it real quick, and tell if there's fish on it. It's usually a swim bait or a swim jig or something I'm throwing around it. But on this lake, not so much value, because you're not going to see a lot of those fish with the forward-facing sonar on these type docks.
Well, that being said, guys are actually using it to bed fish now too.
Yeah.
So I know that crappie fishermen have really come to love it, because they can scan and see where all the brush is and everything underneath. I guess putting it in perspective mode helps a lot in shallower water.
That's the only way I use it.
But so there are guys that are using it and taking it and pushing it to every little envelope push that they can.
Gotcha. Terrell Wallace, what kind of fishing are y'all doing?
Some kind of fishing. Looking for some kind of meat.
Trying to find a bass or two.
Found one so far. Tracy poked it.
But hey, on a beautiful day like today, I imagine anything that bites would be kind of fun.
No, we want bass.
Thought I saw.
Fish does not a pattern make yet. But it's pretty much.
What's the setup that you're flipping with, Dano?
I have a 7.4 heavy fast Lose Pro TI with a 7.5-to-1 Pro TI reel, and then I've got 3/8 tour grade tungsten with a straight shank hook. I tend to like 3/0 and 4/0 straight shank hooks for flipping, especially with fluorocarbon. And then I've got the Rage Craw on there. I'm not super hyped about the Rage Craw yet on this water. I'm saying on where it's at right now. The one bite we've had has been on that craw tube that Tracy got, and honestly, I like to get out and get a gut feeling. In truth, if I was in my boat, I'd probably be fishing 12-pound line right now and fishing that first roll with, you know, a finesse worm of some sort on a Texas rig is the way I'm getting out here and feeling it already. But I came with 3 rods because I'm in Tracy's boat and didn't want to bring the world for 2 hours.
Gotcha. Tracy, what's your preferred setup for skipping docks?
I've got a 7.3 Halo, medium heavy. I like throwing the 7.6 in a little bit more open water, but the 7.3 works a little better for me, being able to maneuver in and under these docks. I like the Corrado, use 7.3, 7.4 ratio reel. 17-pound line. I don't think line size matters too much on these fish. It's a reaction bite for the most part. But the 17 is strong enough that you can get it out from around this brush or out from around these poles without really breaking off a lot. You can still break it, but for the most part, you're not. You start getting up into 20-pound line, which is really better, you know, if you're not breaking it off, but it starts getting a little bit cumbersome on your pitches and casting. The line's pretty stiff, it's pretty taut. That 20 pounds is a little bit more difficult to maneuver into some of these tight crevices that we're pitching into. So 17-pound fluorocarbon is what I like to use. 3/16 weight. I do peg my weight. I don't like my weight going over a limb or over a dock and my weight sliding all the way down 3 feet away from the hook. I like my weight to stay right there by the hook, so I peg my weight so it stays right there stationary with the hook. And I like the extra wide gap on this bait that I'm throwing today on this crawl tube. It's a little bit bulkier bait, so I like that extra wide gap. So I do have a 3/0 extra wide gap on today for this technique. I might not would go with the extra wide gap if I was flipping something a little bit more finessey.
Gotcha.
I started using that. I talked to Andy Montgomery, you know, the Lose and Strike King pro, Major League Fishing pro. He's big, been doing that dock skipping stuff for a lot, and Lose and Strike King, you know, they built their skipping lineup around him. And I looked at him and said, what rod should I use? He said, my 6.9. I said, come on, man. He goes, no, I'm serious. He goes, you think about it, you're tall enough, but you're short-legged and long-armed. And if you're trying to skip with the 7.1, you're going to be beating the water and beating the boat. I went to it, and it's made it easier on me. But same like you, I like 17-pound Tatsu to skip with. And actually, that's what I'm pitching right now is the same thing. But I really like on Neely, I like the Missile Mini Flip, the Ike's Mini Flip with, I've really liked either a baby Rage Craw on there or that new Missile Mini D-Chunk. Yeah, that thing is awesome. Andy, you know, he makes that skipping jig, which is great in my mind on lakes that have bigger fish. Because a full-size jig, you know, you're fishing a tournament, you're looking for a bigger one. But I just think fish around here tend to like that smaller, more compact bait over in general.
I agree.
All right, I'm going to combine a few questions because we've got a few that kind of overlap. I'm going to answer one question that I saw. We are out here on Neely Henry Lake. So that's where we're located today. Actually just down the street from Bucks Island. There's a couple of questions of, are we bed fishing? And I'm going to expand, and then, you know, do you have an area of the lake that you prefer over another? So I'm going to just expand that into, can you kind of give us a, you know, I know we already talked a little bit about it, but we got a lot of new folks that have jumped in. What's going on with Neely, and what are your thoughts as you're looking at the lake? You know, let's say you were coming to do a Saturday tournament and you don't have time to pre-fish, and you're coming out here. What are your thoughts there, Tracy?
By living here, I know mid-April, late April is usually when the high peak of the spawn is. So, you know, automatically coming out here in May, you know, second week of May, I already know that, you know, I'm fishing post-spawn. But if I didn't know all that, you know, it might take you a little bit of effort to get out here and just kind of cruise around in some of these pockets to understand, you know, if you're seeing any of those bedding fish or if you're seeing any of those beds. You know, you see those abandoned beds, which we've already seen two. There's one right there. We see some of these abandoned beds, and the fish are gone from the beds. So we are fishing post-spawn fish right now, you know, part of the bedding process. So, you know, post-spawn, sluggish, like we talked about earlier, and just kind of trying to trick one of these fish into eat something that's kind of just laid up in recovery mode right now. That's the fish we're kind of targeting today.
So what are your thoughts on the part of the lake right now? Obviously, we're kind of mid-lake.
We've talked about this on a couple of our other segments, but Neely Henry's a tricky lake on lake levels. And Michael, I know from filming, you're probably an expert just from hearing us talking about it, but Neely Henry on the lower end, when they open that lower end dam up, the lower end of the lake empties out. It's bone dry up there, 3 or 4 feet up on the, you know, out into the water where it's normally water. Upper end starts flooding. The middle lake always kind of stays stable. It does rise and fluctuate, but at a very slow pace because of all the twists and turns in this lake. So I always at least target the middle of the lake. I'll fish the upper end and I will fish the lower end, but it has to be really something going on that I'm dialed into. If I'm just going out, don't have a lot of practice time, your odds and chances of getting bit, getting into some, you know, quality fish is a lot better in the mid-lake section to me.
Gotcha. Let's circle back around. Talked a little bit about the ledge fishing. The question is there ever a deep ledge bite on Neely?
There is. I can't say there's not, because I've caught them out there and I know people target them. But for the most part, this lake is generating, you know, up until this point, it's been generating about 3 turbines a day. You know, it's starting to slow down now as we get into the summer months, you know, to 2 turbines a day, you know, that they're running, which is about 16,000 feet per second. And those fish just don't really like to sit out there and fight that all the time. And when I say those fish, that gets into another topic, you know, spotted bass versus largemouth. 2 completely different creatures. Those spotted bass, they don't mind that current so much. They'll get behind the little eddy and they'll get out there and they'll stay in it and they'll spend their life in the current. So I would say at about any given time, you know, once it's post-spawn, you could get out on some of these ledges out here, especially some of these gravel bars, you know, out 8 to 12 foot of water, and you can get bit on, you know, catching spots. And occasionally you're going to run into some largemouth. I've caught some, you know, good largemouth doing that, but you know, if you're just playing the percentages, especially if you're a tournament angler, your percentages are going to be a lot better catching that tournament fish, that largemouth up here in this shallower stuff, as opposed to chasing those large, you know, largemouths out there deep. If you're just going after numbers, wanting to catch them, I'd say it's, you know, pretty good choice to find some of those gravel bars, drag a Carolina rig around or a shaky head, you know, something like that, you know, to catch some of those spots.
I tell you though, it's fun to go upriver when that current's running and flip those trees and hit those laydowns, and man, is it fun for spots.
Yes, it is.
Oof. So much fun. It's funny, I learned real quick, you know, you fish the California Delta and it's weedy and you've got some cover there and toolies and stuff, but you could live on the California Delta with 15-pound line most of the time. You'll get your heart broke occasionally, but you can live with it. And first time I went upriver fishing up there, I figured out why guys want 20 and 22 and 25 when they're flipping, because I flipped a tube up into a tree that was leaning, and I didn't realize how many branches that thing went through until I set the hook and watched a fish come out like this. That thing knitted a sweater falling through that current and came out, and I had like 12 feet of line just completely shredded and went dink. Oh my.
What's a tule, Dano? We don't have
it's like a reed in Florida, but it's round and hollow, kind of like a cattail, as I guess some people would call it.
Yeah.
But the whole Delta and Clear Lake are just lined with them. And you'll get these tule banks where you might be out here and there's tules out to here, and you've got these little cracks and crevices that run their way into it, and that's where the bass use those as highways, you know. But it's like it's like a cattail or a reed. It's just it's round and hollow.
We're going to shift gears. I'm glad somebody asked this question, away from fishing itself, and let's talk a little bit about the fishing community, because somebody asked, what do y'all think about Ray Scott passing away? and we'll get to that after.
Oh, you sucker.
Oh,
Did you have a bite?
I did.
You sure?
I was pulling it over the top of that.
I saw it. I saw it out of the side of my eye.
I was pulling it over the top, and it fell, and he swirled on it.
I know Dan's got a story or two from.
I'm fortunate enough that I work in the fishing business. You know, I am part of Team Bucks, part of the family, but my whole living is in the bass fishing space around the tournament sports. You know, I cover the tournaments and I work with the anglers, and I don't have a career if it's not for Ray Scott starting Bassmaster. And in fact, any of us that fish tournaments as a hobby even probably don't have the sport in the manner with which it is without Ray Scott in 1968 coming up with that All-American Bass Tournament and creating the Bass Angler Sportsman Society. Because up until he did that, fishing derbies were considered, and long after, they were considered gambling. There was a lot of unsavory people, tactics, whatever you want to call it. They were known for cheating, and Ray made them rules, and he made a sport. He made an industry, and Ray was very much behind the conservation efforts that we have in the game. He's the one that came up with a lot of them. Ray was a lobbyist. He worked for the outdoors with Washington, D.C. Spent many a day in the halls of Congress working to develop things to help this sport and help conservation and all of those things. So from the heart, we all owe Ray Scott a debt of gratitude. Those that got to be around him, got to talk to him, got to work with him, and those that just get to participate in this sport, we all owe him a debt of gratitude. That being said, Ray was a showman, great salesman, and he was a flirt. He would walk around shows with this little creature that he put in his hand. It was a little mouse. And he'd walk up to all the pretty girls and he would go, "You see my little mouse? You see my little mouse?" And he was trying to flirt with all the girls. It was funny. I watched him at in California when the Invitational went out there, the first one on the California Delta, and one of the guy's wives was attractive. That was there. I mean, there's a lot of attractive women out there that support their husbands, I'm not saying, but it was, Ray made a big point of getting her on stage and saying hi. It was funny. He was funny. We went 2011 Classic was the first year that I had Advanced Angler. Skeet Reese started it and I run it, and I bought it from Skeet. But we're there at Media Day and Ray's standing outside and he's greeting all the media people, and he's got a business card in his pocket. And I mean, the guy's worth tens of millions, but he loved a deal. And he's standing there and he stops and he walks up and he talks and he goes, "Son, let me tell you something. I had the best Italian dinner I've had in forever right down there on the corner. And I'm going to tell you what, here's a card. You go in there, you tell them Ray Scott sent you, they'll take great care of you. You'll have the best Mexican meal you've had in your life." And he's telling a group of 6 or 7 of us, and we took the cards and he walked away, and I looked at everybody and said, "You know what that means? Ray got a free meal last night telling him he was going to tell all the media where to go eat." He loved a deal. He loved a deal. So, you know, we haven't seen him for a long time because he's been ill, fighting battles, health-wise. Sold his ranch with his property on it, with his pond on it that he made so famous. But that man, we all owe him a debt of gratitude.
All right. I knew you'd have a thing or two to say about that one. All right, guys. let's get back into some fishing tips. Somebody asked,
Are those silver signs? They don't look like shad.
how long will you stay on a dock?
It depends on the dock, Michael. I can't explain the science behind it, but there's certain docks for whatever reason. All the stars line up, the shades line up, the algae on the dock lines up, and those docks, for some reason, hold big fish time and time again. And there's something more to it than just coincidence, and I don't know what that is. So on a dock like that, I would wear out every pole on it, every shadow on it, every ladder on it from different angles. I may spend 15 minutes on a dock like that. But for just a general dock, like going down to an area where I've not fished before, just fishing the docks, I would just hit the high, probability places, the corner poles, and hit the places where it's shaded, hit under the little boat houses. But what you'll find out after, a little bit of fishing docks, if we go through and we fish 30 or 40 docks, what you probably run into is that you get bit on the second pole from the bank, consistently. You start seeing a pattern. So then it starts narrowing or reducing the time you're having to spend, fishing a dock. And you wouldn't, for the rest of the day, especially in tournament fishing, you wouldn't have to go fish that whole dock. You would just go to that one dock to the next and start hitting what you're thinking is that pattern that you're starting to see of where they're stationed at. So at that point you can get it down to only having to spend 5 or 6 minutes per dock, maybe not even that long, and you're only fishing in those really high productive areas where you should be fishing.
If you watch these guys that are really good at tournament fishing, guys like Tracy, Matt, Wes, all of them, when you're on a piece of water and you're trying to figure out the bite, figure out the pattern, and then even after you've kind of figured it out, you start looking at law of averages type things, and you look at trying to put the bait in front of as many fish as possible, so they don't slow down until they know where the fish are. And once they start figuring out, like Tracy said, maybe they're on docks that have a channel swing to the outside of them, and they're on that second pole in 4 to 6 feet of water. They don't slow down until they figure that out, and they may just run, trolling motor on high, pitch, until they figure that out, and then they start to slow down.
Well, along the same lines, as we sit out here on Neely Henry, what made you pick this side over the other side that also has all the docks?
Two things, Michael. Right now it's super still. You can see the lake out here. It's nearly glass, so it's kind of difficult to catch fish. Period.
Oh, that sucker took me under the log.
In these still conditions, here you go. I'm do that.
No, he's still there, I think.
So it's super tough to catch them in these still conditions. So looking at the lake right now, we needed one of two things to either happen. We either needed wind to be blowing, or we needed some current. This side of the lake definitely has more current on it than that side. It's a little flatter over there. The current's running right down through here. So that was the number one reason I picked this side, because it has some amount of current going through here to generate some level of activity. And then if you look at the shoreline, no shade over there versus shade over here. So these shade lines help us as far as tricking the fish, for lack of a better word, putting these imitation baits on them and convincing them that's a brim.
That's why I got bit. There's fry right here. That was a fry garter right here, Tracy. And it yanked my rod tip good, took me underneath, and probably let it go when I went to swing. Yeah, well, there was a bunch of fry right there. Here, I'm going to give you a tip on breaking fluorocarbon. No, seriously. If you grab fluorocarbon and you try to stretch break it, you'll stretch all the line to your reel, and the next time you go to set the hook, you could break off. So the proper way to break fluorocarbon is to snap shock it. Because you try to pop the line quickly so that you don't stretch the line out. Learn that the hard way. Slow on the trigger there, my boys. Picked up, that fish went. But that was a fry garter right there.
Yeah.
Well, that log is loose. Look at it.
Yeah.
It hasn't sunk into the bottom yet.
It's a good spot for that too.
I'm getting into your box, Bubba.
Do you see the it's a little smaller one?
I'm gonna start Carolina rigging these docks.
See it up there down.
I'm joking.
All right, so when bed fishing, of course, you look for them. Do you have a search bait that you feel like a bedding fish will react to for the ones you can't see?
I like to throw a jig on first, Michael. And if I'm truly I'm going out bed fishing, I'm gonna have about 3 or 4 baits out in a variety of flavors and colors. But my go-to is a green pumpkin style jig is the first thing I like to throw, especially when I can see them. That just, to me, is way more natural. And probably for me, it's what I have confidence in. I think as a fisherman, that's the #1 most important thing that I try to tell people about is find something you're confident in. These fish will eat a little bit of everything. They'll eat every bait we've got in this box. We've probably got 10,000 baits in here. They'll eat every one of them. Find something you've got confidence in and throw it a lot. I know that's not the question, but any kind of your creature baits, I'll throw crawls in there, the rage crawl. After if I can't get one to bite that jig, I'll throw the rage crawl. And we said earlier, probably white's not one of our favorites, and it's not one of mine either. But I'll keep it up here. Whenever I see one, he hadn't hit a jig, hadn't hit the crawl, I'll throw a little white, creature-looking bait in there. But just keep, trying different techniques until something, makes that fish, mad. It's just like out here in public, everybody responds to things differently. You might not be able to piss Dano off with, tell him, his hair's all jacked up, messed up, or whatever.
Thanks, love you too.
But you talk about Dano's family, he might be ready to fight you. So everybody responds differently, and the point is each fish responds so differently. So, you got to trial and error what works for you, what works for the fish. But jig, crawl, something like that. My normal.
I'm a big fan of a frog for spawning time. I'm an edumacator first. So you don't want to do that? Get out of the boat. I'll take your boat and go. I was in a tournament in California, exposed to the effectiveness of walking a frog over bedded fish. Probably 93, 94, and it blew me away what happens when you walk a frog over the top of a actively spawning or a post-spawn fry garter. And you can go down the bank and you can walk that frog and you can scan and they'll let you know they're there.
I didn't think about that. That's a good bait.
They will let you know they are there because they're going to either eat it or they're going to try to push it out of the way a lot of times. But the deal is to walk it in a way that you make a lot of side-to-side movement and you don't move the frog too far forward. So that's a technique to learn, is walking a frog. You can bob it too, but bobbing it pulls it more forward than side to side.
Well,
that's a really cool question. I like that one. Who asked that?
I honestly can't remember. I've scrolled past and found another one. And I have a short memory.
I actually want to give that person a gift card. That was a great question.
Well, I can go back and find that for sure, especially if it's for a gift card.
Or they can just say their name again. Say, I asked that question. Of course, 7,000 people will now say, I asked that question.
Well, fortunately, it's documented, but I'm not sure how far down we are on the questions, so I'm trying to scroll through and.
I love
I did see somebody asked a question about how long did it take you to learn how to skip. So maybe turn that into a quick tips on how to go, how to go about learning how to skip it for a new angler.
We talked about rod length earlier. Key point: get the shorter rod, easier control. That's one of the key things. And at that point, there's only one thing to do: is go do it. And you pose the question, how long did it take me to learn to do it? I'm still learning to do it. Every time I come up to a dock or come up to these brush, I try to do something better.
Oh, yeah.
I try to do something where I can get it further and further. I try different techniques. I try different things. I'm always learning. I still haven't learned how to do it where I think that I would be considered a master. A Brian Thrift or Andy Montgomery, those type guys.
Hot Defoe.
So I haven't learned it yet to that level. I'm still learning it. But just getting that rod in your hand and getting out there and doing it, that's the only thing you can do.
Well, I'll give you a little. Let's say you can't get out on the water and go do it. Yeah. Pick the rod that you like, that you're going to do it with, and get something to stand on in your garage or on your driveway. That is 1.5 to 2 foot. It could be a cooler, could be something like that to mimic being in a boat on the water. And then stand on your driveway and learn the technique and see what the bait does with the different things. If you hit too close to the boat, you backlash. If you hit too far out, it goes too high, you create other problems for yourself that you never get that bait under. But if you take an old jig, cut the hook off of it, put a trailer on that thing and stand in your driveway and on something, you'll get the clue pretty quick. Because what do we stand off the water here? When you're on that deck, what are you, like 20?
2.5.
Yeah, so if you get something that you can stand on, something solid, don't do, stand on a Coke bottle or something, because you don't want to get hurt, but something that's good and solid that you can stand on and you can learn in your driveway. And then take it to the water. And then at that point, the only thing that makes you adjust is wave action or water height or something. But those guys that are good at it, they'll get it in there. I mean, they'll get it in a crack that big, and they'll get it when the dock is that tall off the water, or the overhang, or whatever it is, undercut banks. Those guys are amazing. But they all start somewhere.
Doing all right?
How y'all doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't see the cameraman making all that noise.
Hey, we're all here. You guys go ahead, do your work.
Y'all fine.
What a neat place.
Yeah, we got lucky we found this place before the market went nuts about 4 years ago.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you rent that thing out?
I've had a lot of people ask. It's full. It's got shower, toilet, everything in it. But nah, I had never rented it.
I got some fishermen that come to town that'd love to rent that thing.
That's what everybody said. Kind of place, park the boat, and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Now just put a gas pump in here, you'll be good.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's the whole thing right here. There's only 2 places to get gas in this river. Yeah, and they're both right beside each other.
Yeah, there you go.
Y'all good luck. Catch something.
Thanks, sir.
All right. So somebody asked if we'd had a bite. We've had a couple, and Tracy's managed to put a decent fish in the boat so far today.
I've lost one and hung one up.
Shifting.
Where'd you get popped? Right in that little corner. Between the 2 poles? Yeah. Where I haven't hit? Yeah, gotcha.
Shifting gears back to some industry. Matt Bronner said, "I love that Dan is going to all the major tournaments and giving recaps." I'm sure he's referring some to our Bucks Island on Tour series that we've had some fun with.
Oh, yeah.
But what exactly, Dan, talk for a quick second, because guys, if you want to see more from what he's doing, Advanced Angler is definitely, he's putting some content over there. But what's really taking you to all those tournaments? We're kind of just taking advantage of it at Bucks Island.
Well, Bucks Island is family, and I want to make sure that I get to include that in everything that I can. But what I'm doing is Christina and I, my wife and I, we do a lot of work with a lot of the anglers, media tracking work, and And then Advanced Angler is a how-to based website. So we try to teach people how to fish. Yes, we have partners, products that I've come to know and love over the years. There are partners on the website, you know, Luz and Strike King and Missile Baits and Amphibia Sunglasses, you know, and there's others. Spear Point hooks. We try to teach people how to use some of that stuff, but we try to let the pros do the teaching. Social media has created a little bit more of a need for me to do some more stuff on my own, so reluctantly, I put myself in front of the camera on the website, which is hard for me because my job has always been to be behind the camera. So it's been one of those things, it's a learning curve for me, and I try a lot of things and I don't like it, so I don't use it, and I probably should. But we have a couple of content responsibilities that we do, social media wrap-up videos for companies. It's just the anglers and their product. It's not about Advanced Angler, but we're there to support the anglers and their families on our side of the business, create more opportunities to get relationships for Bucks Island on the other side, that we can get them to come in and do, you know, appearances and seminars and learn and glean from their knowledge. And then at the same time be able, on the Bucks Island side, to be able to find out what the new products are that are coming before they really hit the market, so that we can be one of the first to get them, so that you guys can be some of the first anglers to get them. But that's what we're there for. We're there to be support. And obviously, bottom line is to help all of you be able to learn more about new products, learn more about techniques, to do one thing, put more of those things in there. That's what we're here for.
Well, I appreciate the comment, and for those of y'all that are getting something out of those Bucks Island on Tour videos that we're doing, they're a lot of fun and pretty interesting. So, especially for guys like me that don't get to be there in person. So, and
we'll have one soon.
Yeah.
Because we got Gunnersville going on this week with the Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit. So I'll go up there Sunday. Here's how much I care about you guys. This is honest. My wife has been gone since April 3rd. She had 2 deaths in the family, 2 aunts that were super close to her, that she was really close to, and she's been in California since April the 3rd. She comes home on Sunday. So because of you guys and us caring about your job, I've been told you're going to Gunnersville as soon as the weigh-in, to be there for the weigh-in, so that we can make sure we get all that stuff.
Nice.
So we'll have a Gunnersville.
So y'all give some thumbs up to say thank you to Christina for letting Dan do that. So
Latin. You have a job to do, son.
All right. Let me scroll through and see if we got any.
We love what we do, and we love the people more.
All right, we're getting some good thumbs up. That's awesome. Thanks, guys. Okay, here's a restocking question. Other states are really pushing restocking programs. Do you think Alabama should?
I can tell you that there are efforts underway to try to, from here, to try to work something out to be able to do that. Because in my opinion, outside of stunted, which usually happens in pond where you get stunted growth because there's too much fish population and not enough forage base, a place like this, it's really hard to have too many fish in it. Hey, our baits wanted to make out. Sorry about that. Let's not make a knot out of this. It's really hard on a place like a river like this to have too much bait for the forage, or too much fish population that overwhelms the forage. So I think there's not such a thing as too many bass. I will tell you that I think you need to stay with the native in a place like this. A lot of people think, let's put Florida strain in here. And I'm going to tell you right now, having come from California, yeah, you'll catch some giant fish, but they are the most temperamental, moody, weather bothered fish you'll ever be around. And it will actually, while you'll get some big ones occasionally, and you'll have some great days when everything's perfect. Go fish Florida when the air temperature drops 10 degrees. You'll be lucky to get a bite for days. So stay with the northern strain in here for the largemouth. I don't know that you can stock spots real easily. But I know that if you put more largemouth in this lake and you make them more, you make that more plentiful, the spots will not get beaten up as much. But I guess I've always been an honest guy. I speak my mind. If Fish and Wildlife is going to allow places like Lay Lake and Logan and Gunnersville and all those places to have people around the lake be able to run their own programs and fundraisers and then stock the fish, then they need to get out of our way here at Neely Henry and let us do the same thing.
Gotcha.
Because they keep saying that we've got enough fish, but you know, Matt Herron is extremely passionate about this topic. And the striper play an effect in the fish population, the bait population, and they do all of their shocking samples within a mile or two of downtown, and that's where every fish that gets caught in tournaments gets released there. So I think it's exaggerated a little bit, and there's area of this lake that may not have the population. They might, but we need to shock sample everything, and we need some scientific answers. That's where people like Coosa River Keepers have, wanted to get involved, and that's a great organization. Justin and her people are they're good people, and they care. Hugh, Greater Gadsden, he cares. I know the people at Bucks Island care.
So you opened the can of worms when you asked that question. And I'm glad you did. I appreciate it. It's definitely something that the fishing community in Alabama, particularly around here, needs to talk about and think about. So Tracy, you got anything to add in your thoughts?
Tracy's a Neanderthal who go, more fish, more fish.
No, I'm all about having a healthy lake too. But for me, I've lived here for 53 years, so I've seen what this lake's capable of. So it's extremely discouraging to see what it puts out now compared to what it has in the past 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago. I mean, I was legitimate, bass fishing tournaments, in the late 70s, and the tournaments here were really good weights back then. So I know that it's not healthy. I hear what the biologists are saying, but my version of what healthy is, from a fisherman's standpoint, is probably not the same as what that biologist is referring to as healthy. But I just know, I would like to see some improvement because I know the lake's got a whole lot more capability than what it shows right now.
Gotcha.
And I hear so many different answers from different biologists, about it being healthy, having plenty of fish, but I do know deep down it's not what it was, and I know it at least holds that potential.
All right, I saw one question about when we're going to do a live with a kayaker.
One just take a swing at you there.
I think I had a limb.
Oh, okay.
And I'm just going to say I've already done a few with kayakers. I did one not too long ago, just before Fish Fest, with Lance McWhirter, a Jackson pro. But we are definitely, as we grow the kayak world for Bucks Island, we'll get a few more guys out on kayaks. So I'm actually waiting on, I think Friday we're going up to send somebody up to Jackson to pick up a couple of NARs. So that's the new boat for those of you guys that aren't into plastic boats. That's the new exciting boat out of Jackson, and looking forward to having one in the shop to play with. And we'll see.
Say it right. We're excited.
NAR.
NAR on it.
Yeah.
We're going to NAR on it.
All right. So back to fishing tips. When fishing a swim jig, what's the best retrieve you use?
Alabama shake.
Tracy? Which let me before you jump into that, what did you you swapped out? You picked up something different while we've been.
Pick up a swim jig, and that's probably what prompted the question. But I'm going to go against some of those guys out there that do the Alabama shake. I'm 100% against it.
You don't like the Alabama shake?
No.
I like it because it slows me down.
I see some of those.
I like the War Eagle shake.
I see some of those guys, some of the biggest
Could resist.
bass fishing, the whole time doing this. And I know where it started. You know, back in the 70s and 80s when we first started, swim jig fishing.
Didn't have any trailers.
We didn't have trailers worth of crap. They had no action. And we
man, you had the frog.
We did. That's exactly what we had on there.
Curl tail toad.
We put on a little frog on the back of it, and you had to shake it to get any action. And now it's evolved. I'm not going to say it's wrong, but I am 100% against it. But now we have trailers that create all that action. And you don't need to shake it anymore. When you shake that rod right there, all you're doing is making a moving target a much more moving target, and you're making it more difficult for that fish to hook up with your bait. So those guys that are on Neely Henry shaking it, 100% disagree with them. Don't care who they are.
Keep doing it.
Yeah, I want you to keep doing it. Please keep doing it if you're fishing again.
I tend to go too fast if I don't shake it.
You can throw that up there, and almost every one of your bites come whenever you bounce it off something. If you can see the grass right there, that's where the fish are going to be. That's where we're swim jigging at. Bounce it off of that stuff. Keep a nice, slow, steady retrieve up and over each one of those limbs. Leave it as a target that bass can zone in on and attack. I'm going to tell you the only time I would ever shake it is when you go like some of these lakes. Logan Martin gets a lot clearer than this lake. It's shaped a lot different. And you get between these docks like this, the water's really clear, and those fish are on that shad spawn, and you just throw it out there and just reel it in between the docks. Probably not as good as shaking it. Shake it, give it a little bit of action so you can, at least make it not look like a jig coming through the water with a rubber trailer behind it. That's the only time I would ever shake it. But these guys that come to Neely and shake it right here in this grass right here, keep shaking it. That's my message.
Well, let me, since I've heard a lot of answers to that question, let me pimp you with the question or the follow-up question of, are you swimming that jig all the way back to the boat?
No.
What's your thoughts there?
Just in the strike zone. Yeah, I'm not. And if I was getting bit out here, I would. And there's probably been a few times in my career where I would. But for the most part, I'm throwing it in that grass. I'm swimming it through there. Most of the bites when you come when you bounce over something or right there on the edge, and then I'll reel it on in. If I'm seeing bait fish being chased out here and activity going on, I might swim it on back, and I've got a few bites out, away from it. But for the most part, back to what Dano talked about earlier, it's just a math problem in these tournaments. You've only got about 8 hours in the day, and you've got to spend that efficiently. So the more productive areas that I can put my bait in during the day, the more chances I got statistically of getting bit. So no, I'm not spending my tournament time fishing like that.
Something's moving in that grass, right?
See that?
Hit the target meat. It's probably a gar. I'm over here trying to get a gar bite. There it is. It's funny, you hear the guys that fish fast, Kevin and Brian Thrift and those guys, they do. But it's very strategic. They don't just in fact, you'll rarely see any of those guys just put the trolling motor on and go straight down a piece of bank. They're actually reading the map and they're following contours as they're doing it to stay off of points that are underwater, contours that drop off. But if, in the case of that, I'm going to demonstrate real quick. I'll grab my little swim jig. So let's say that dock is this edge of this dock right here is the end of the strike zone. What those guys do is they may make their presentation, jig, chatterbait, whatever it is, and they fish the thing slowly, but then they get it right through the strike zone and they reel it up and make the next pitch. And if you do it that way, you're fishing fast. You're fishing slow, quickly, if you know what I mean. You're fishing slow, fast. You're using the pace that's going to keep you in the strike zone, but the moment you're out of the strike zone, again, law of averages, like Tracy said, math problem. You want to present as to many fish as you can. So if that log is the edge of your strike zone, and you present that bait, and you swim it by, and you just keep on this pace all the way out, thinking a fish may follow all the way out to the boat, or you may intercept one out here, you're wasting time. Rip it up and make the next pitch. Get it to the edge of the strike zone, and then get it up out of the water and move it to make the next one. And you're going to double the amount of casts you can make on the water versus trying to fish that all the way out just because. Now that's after you find a pattern. You know, if you don't have the pattern, you got to cover water a little more methodically. But that's what those guys do.
Gotcha.
They probably saw us, you know, around all these docks this morning too. And as Dano was, you know, doing that, I was motored around that dock right there, never even made a cast on it because we started out, and we didn't talk about it, but we flipped on the first 8 or 10 docks. We fished each pole, each hole, never got a bite. So now every time I've got up to one of these docks, you've noticed I just go right on around it and don't even fish it. Let the fish tell you what they're wanting and where they're going to be. And we've caught our fish basically on bare stuff, other than, you know, one little log that Dano had one on. But we've not got a bite on that, so I wouldn't say completely eliminated it, but I would run with this pattern until I, you know, felt like I couldn't do anything else with it.
Does that answer the question?
I think that's a good discussion on swimming jigs.
I mean, do they feel like they got what they were looking for out of it?
Y'all let me know. I saw, as I scrolled down and caught up with some of the questions, we had some more lake stocking.
I think we've covered that.
Yeah. I guess if for those, and we won't dive back into that, but I mean, is that worth? And this is to you guys that are watching. You know, I mean, we can definitely throw together a live or something to do kind of a discussion about the biology of it and restocking, and maybe find, you know,
let's add this to you, okay? You know, you got advanced Etowah and you got all that stuff that you work in so much. As a single resource for the city, tournament bass fishing brings in $10 million a year to this community. That's how much revenue it generates. That's a study that's been done. Etowah County, Houston, Greater Gadsden, all that stuff, they did a study and figured out that annually it brings in just about $10 million a year, maybe just over. And then when we had those bigger tournaments, you get a spike in it when the open. And so it's worth investing in our resource. And I'd like to see any one of those politicians be able to say, here's what's going to bring $10 million a year into this community.
Yeah. So guys, yeah, just we'll wrap it up with leave a comment if you think, you know, if you'd like us to do a little bit more with that, and maybe put something together. So out here we're enjoying a beautiful 80-degree day, catching fish. So we can really quickly get into politics when you start talking about restocking.
I scared him. Sorry, that was childish.
I didn't see
What was that?
It was a gar.
It scared me.
It was a gar. I saw him sitting there and I decided to pitch on him and see if he would respond, and I landed right on top of him and it spooked him. I told my wife and my mother-in-law, when I grow up I want to be a kid, so do not be surprised if I do dumb stuff. Not quite there yet.
Well, Tracy, you stole my next question, which is what's led you to zip around all the docks?
Yeah,
But already covered that.
But the thing I've noticed too is back down there earlier, Dano and I were talking, and it was a lot harder bottom down there where we were getting bit at. You can't really see it, but we can feel it with our baits. A lot muddier right through here. Not a lot of chert and gravel like we were feeling down there, and we haven't got a bite in probably, I don't know, 200 yards now. So it's all, you know, all day long. It's just about putting pieces of the puzzle together.
So I know, you know, you're a little artificially restricted with the camera and everything going, but a normal day, would you, with what you just said, would you kind of pack up and move on somewhere else?
I would. What my next move would be is we just fish basically. This is considered a river stretch, the main river. I would probably, you know, even though I told you earlier on that those fish have kind of moved out of those pockets, we're fishing postpone, I would probably go into one of these off the river pockets that had a little bit of depth to it and just run maybe a 100-yard section of it, about like we just did, and see if there's, you know, more fish activity going on in those. Where we took off from, we saw a lot of bait fish on a point. That might be, you know, a 2A or a 2B. Next choice too is checking out some of these shallow points coming in and out of some of those shallow pockets. So the fish are either here or they're in the pocket. There's not a lot of places they can be. You know, they're probably not out here behind us in this main river. Right now they're running one turbine and
not a lot of current, in other words.
just not a lot of current, but you're not going to find many of your largemouth on this river system out there behind us.
The stick felt good. I almost swung on it.
But just convincing them to bite right now is the biggest thing. You know, Dano and I coming up through there fishing just then probably made 300, 400 different pitches. I know that there were bass that looked at our baits as we were coming up through there that we didn't catch, you know. So convincing them, getting it in front of one of them, having the right color, the right movement, catching a fish that's actually ready to eat, you know, is a challenging part right now. They're laying there just kind of in a lull right now. The fishing's really going to pick up in another probably 2 weeks. Those fish are starting to kind of get into more of that late spring pattern. It'll be a lot more catchable.
There's 2 ways to go about it this time of year. You can go extreme reaction, and you can flip reaction style, which is to put a heavier weight on it and make it fall fast and make the fish respond to it, make a lot of presentations. You want the bait to enter the water really soft so it doesn't alert them to that it's there and just have it appear in front of them. Or you can really slow down and creep your bait. In this time frame, we don't have time to slow down and creep the bait because they're going to be funky in the post spawn. So when you're pitching, it's either, you know, make a lot of pitches and make it fall fast in front of them, or really methodically move the bait through areas and try to, you know, annoy them into striking. It's not as easy to make a fish annoyed as it is your wife. That's all I'm going to say. I can open my mouth one time and my wife is annoyed.
Well, I will throw the warning out as we see this blue heron buzzing around us. Let's not catch another one of those on one of these lives. So I had enough excitement. Yeah, with Pam Wells, she cast and the bird took off right into the line, and so got him loose and all that kind of good stuff. But
that was amazing.
Well, guys, thanks for hanging out with us. For those that may have jumped in the last little bit, we are going to do a little giveaway at the end of this. So we need a comment, a question. Tell me where you're watching from. Something. Throw it in the comments, and appreciate you hitting the share button. But we're going to give a couple of Loft gift cards away. We got, let's see, we got about another 45 minutes or so. We'll go.
Tracy's got to put up with me for that long.
That's where I love to be, Dan. I don't care who's with me.
You say that now.
So y'all,
I am not.
We'll come up with more topics to talk about.
I have an opinion.
You don't understand fishing Willie.
Willie's awesome.
You can't quit laughing.
Alan says, watching from work, wishing I could be on the lake.
Quit your job, take up fishing for a living. Instant riches. Whatever.
Well, this is the first time I've been on the lake in a while, so I'm enjoying it.
There's got to be something in that tree. That was a terrible presentation. Bloosh!
Well, while we're waiting for some more fishing questions, why don't we take a quick, I guess I'd say, commercial break, and let's talk about the current state of the boat world that we're finding ourselves in at Bucks Island with our Skeeters, Falcons, Bass Cats, Avids, and G3s.
Let's just say that supply chain issues have created a situation where everybody is working to get stuff. I mean, I know we've had electronics issues with manufacturers, trolling motor issues, motor issues. There are boats that have been on order for 6, 7, 8 months that we haven't seen yet because of one thing or another. I would say that at this point, the average time to get a boat that you've ordered is going to be about 6 months. And we have very few boats that are unspoken for that come in the showroom. There's deposits on most everything. So what does that mean if you're in the boat market? Get on there, figure out what you want. Prices are going to change. It's just the bottom line. But we will, as a dealership, especially with Falcon and Bass Cat, where we've got things in place, more Falcon than Bass Cat, but some, is we'll move a stock boat to put a customer boat in there if someone's wanting something specific. But the best thing to do is figure out what you want and put an order in so that your spot in line is held.
Yeah, I'd say we haven't had a stock Skeeter in at least 18 months.
No, we had one last week come in that wasn't spoken for, but it was an Apex.
It was probably one that somebody had ordered and then changed their mind. So
No, it was one that somebody ordered. That person changed their mind, so the guy that ordered this one stepped up and took the one that had come in before, even though the color was different, because he was going to be waiting another 6 months.
yeah, so we're already actually pre-selling 2023 Skeeters.
Yes.
We've
taken orders for 2023 Falcons.
The biggest thing that, and I'm being a web guy, I'm not a big fan of the whole make a ploy to get you on the phone with a salesperson so they can make some pressure pitch. I want you to do your research and talk to us, and that's the way we tend to do business. Is we want you to have a good experience shopping for a boat. That being said, right now, if you're not talking to a salesperson, then you're not going to have any idea what's really going on. You're just not seeing the boats showing up on the web. I've seen a few people on some of the forums frustrated that I can't find anything in stock. I can't find, and they've been looking for 8 months. Well, so
they're looking for a stock boat to go jump on, and the fact of the matter is that
they just don't exist.
That have put an order in or put a deposit on the next thing in that boat size that's coming in, so that when it does arrive and it doesn't have someone spoken for, it's already kind of deposited.
So
Dan, one question I get asked a lot is, does Bucks buy used boats?
Yes.
I've had several people wanting to know if Bucks will be into a boat that they don't use anymore.
Yes, absolutely. Now here's the one thing is I will say the boat market as a whole is higher right now. As the prices have gone up on new boats, it brings everything else up with it. But the one thing to remember is that if we're going to purchase a boat, it's a business, and there has to be some room for Bucks Island as a company to be able to make some money in order to keep the doors open. So if the value of that boat, as you've looked on, the boat pricing places, says it's $35,000, we have to have some room in order to make that. So if you want to sit on a boat and sell it yourself, there's some advantages because you make more money. But the advantages to taking a little less and allowing Bucks Island to sell it is that we're going to get, I don't care if you get 7,000 people that look at your boat, we're going to have 100% more that are going to look at it. So we'll sell your boat a lot faster. We can consign boats for you where you don't just out and out sell it to us. We can consign a boat. Again, there's got to be some room for the company to make a little bit of money. But if there's some understanding that it's a business, and yes, we do need to keep the doors open, and every one of the people, all those people there have families to feed and future investments to consider and more product to try to get in on every level. As long as somebody understands that and wants to work with us, we'll do everything we can to make it worth their while to do so.
Good. Thank you. I'll let them know.
Depending on, obviously a lot of it depends on what the boat is and the condition of the boat and those kinds of things. Because when we sell a boat, we put a small warranty on it to make sure that you have a boat there. So we're going to do a trade check on it. We're going to do your compression test on the engine. We're going to do our due diligence to make sure that the next person that gets that boat gets it done. If something's not working just right, you can have it fixed in our service department in order to sell it. But it's going to be something that we can stand behind as a company that cares about its customers and provide somebody the boat of their dreams, even if it's a used boat that someone else is done with, you know. You scared that turtle.
Well, I'll finish that up with if you do have folks, they can jump on our website and go into the sales section, and there's a place where you can submit your boat information, you know, and say whether you're interested in us buying or consigning it, and that really speeds up the process and cuts down on emails back and forth. So fill out all the information that you can and get that submitted, and then somebody from sales will get in touch with them. So.
I see a little trick that Tracy does that I'm not going to mention.
Uh-oh.
Kidneys.
TJ Russell jumping in, bringing up a good point. We do have a good stock of kayaks right now.
Yeah,
so
good ones.
and we got a showroom full of Hobies and getting some more Jacksons in. So if you're a kayak guy, then jump on our website. We've got most of our inventory there. So, well, that was a long commercial interruption, but hopefully one or two of you might be in the business or might be in the in the boat shopping mindset, and maybe that helps you a little bit. So it's definitely a weird world we're living in across the board on product.
I wonder if there's something sitting behind him.
Bet she ain't far.
Probably pants me and take me all the way into the dock again. I know, I saw it. I ain't gonna bring it up.
All right, guys, let's get some questions in here.
On the bottom, that little bead will fall out. That's the second looks.
What is Yamaha doing about the waiting list for our SHO prop?
We have no idea.
Yeah,
We keep asking the same thing. We're in the process of looking at other ways to get people propellers to be able to use their boats. That's what we keep looking at. Ooh, I heard that. What was that?
I don't know. He's back there in the back.
yeah.
It's moving right there. There's all kinds of activity in that little pad. Oh, I love it when they start pop, pop, pop.
He's going to eat it.
Come on, girls. They're probably just gar or carp or something. But I heard something swirl at the surface. Trying to get this out without having it snap on Michael's.
Man, that's a huge.
I caught a 3-pounder.
That's awesome.
I love it when a mat is alive.
All right, question for Tracy. What is the best trolling motor out there, in your opinion?
One you can get.
Yeah.
Circling back around to product availability.
There you go.
Well, for me, I mean, I like the Minn Kota just because it feels like what's supposed to be under my foot. I've had 18 Skeeters. Every one of them have had the Minn Kotas on them, so it's just what I'm comfortable with. I've not used any of the others, so it wouldn't even be fair for me to say, other than getting in somebody else's boat and maybe mashing the pedal around a little bit. But as far as using, the Garmin Force, I'm sure it's a good trolling motor. I'm sure there's, comparable ones out there. But for me, the Ultra X with the spot lock and all, being able to, move around on, set it up to where I can stay on the same contour line, it's just what I'm comfortable with. So You know, I don't have a real good answer other than that's just what I'm familiar with and feel more comfortable with.
My last 3 boats have had Ultrexes on them. I ran 4 Trexes before that. I do love the Minn Kota. The Ultrex is hard to come by right now. But everybody's going to have their personal taste and preference. Everybody does the best job they could to make the best product that they can, and they all have similar features. But right now, finding a trolling motor is a big key. I know that my next year's boat was ordered and is scheduled to go into production in July, and they're saying, hope we have a trolling motor by then. So again, back to where we were before.
Well, if you're a kayak guy, we just so happen to have some of the short 36-inch shaft motor guides that a lot of guys have been putting on kayaks. So just throwing that out there.
Or a Torpedo.
We do have the Torpedo to power the kayak, which is actually the company that builds the motor portion for a couple of the Lowrance and the Garmin. I don't know, have you talked much with the guys like Canterbury? He's a Lowrance guy.
Loves his motor.
He's used his...
Loves his motor. Billy Hines, a friend of ours, longtime friend of mine, a friend of Buck's. He loves his Garmin. Menendez uses the motor guide, and here's what I'll tell you is there's not a mechanical thing out there that's not going to have issues. And I don't care. You can have 5 great pieces of product, and then one of them have struggles. Whether it's the glass, whether it's the motor, whether it's the trolling motor, whether it's the electronics, is ultimately you got to trust the warranty process. You got to trust the. I'm going to pause for a minute. You see that boat right there? Yeah. That boat is the forethought and the creativity of Tony Lumpkin. If you see a boat on this river anywhere that says Lifetime on the side of it, that's Tony Lumpkin's idea. Our big owner, our boss, the patriarch of our family. That was Tony's idea to have, I don't remember what the company was, but it was Tony's idea to have a company build a set of boats that only had 3 color options. And the color options were they were all stickered the same. They all had the same basic interior, but the seats and the canvas all got a different stripe to them. There were 3 colors, and that allowed Tony to get a boat that he could sell at a lot less money, and ordered dozens of them in each color. So if you see Lifetime, that's Tony Lumpkin and his idea.
Did not know that.
Tony told me that story, and it's just another one of those amazing things that Tony has done in his career that's been so impressive to a guy that's into marketing and all that stuff. Anyway.
So,
break, I guess.
yeah. Well, the last trolling motor, I will tell you and encourage you, jump on a Tech Tuesday with us. One of these Tuesdays when I'm on with Israel. Israel's, from the mechanical side of things, he's worked on all of them, and he is not shy about sharing his opinion. So if you want a good mechanical question on the trolling motors, jump on Tech Tuesday. Timmy Taylor. Hey folks, sorry I'm just now joining. What have I missed?
We've caught 30 fish.
Just kidding.
We've caught 30 fish, up to 7 pounds. I've caught 28 of them. Tracy's caught 2.
Yeah.
He did catch the big one. Just kidding.
So yeah, sorry Timmy, we totally gave away. You're gonna have to go back and watch, so you know exactly where to go fish this weekend.
Didn't see that one.
So Timmy does ask, does Tracy leave his sonar units active when fishing shallow like this?
He's got one on.
Whenever I'm out here, there's a little bit of current, a little bit of boat weight. I'm not as concerned about sound. When I get in those pockets and it's really, really quiet, I always turn my sonar off. I would say it's off more than it's on. Right now I do have it on, but just out here, there's just general noise out here that I'm not as concerned about noise right now, but for the most part, yes.
Interesting thing for you. You know, Helix has a standby mode. I've been educated recently by Matt Herron. It doesn't shut the sonar off. Solix, when you hit the standby mode, it shuts the sonar off. But if you just put standby mode on in the Helix and you're trying to not make sound, you're still pinging. The screen's been shut down.
I physically go in and hit sonar off.
Yep, that's what you have to do on a Helix.
2-button clicks.
That's what you have to do. If you're wanting to leave it on so you have a quick startup when you go to run.
Well, with that noise discussion, what are your thoughts on the hydro waves?
I use it. I know there's people that think it's a joke. I do some writing with Kim Stricker, who does the show Hook and Look. It was on the Outdoor Channel. He doesn't believe it works because he's been underwater and says he can't hear it. But here's what I'll tell you. I've seen some really weird stuff when I turn that thing on. I've watched fish come off the bottom towards the trolling motor. I've watched an area of the lake where there were no bait fish active, but you could see them underneath on the sonar, that all of a sudden they start coming to the surface and moving. I'm also the guy that says we as humans can take and do whatever scientific study we want on anything, but until we have, you know, the knowledge of a much higher power, you know, we say dogs can't see in color. Well, because they don't have rods and cones and whatever. Well, maybe their rods and cones do have color. Maybe they just don't have as good a view. I don't know. So I'm not going to make that assumption. But all I know is, while a human can sit there, look at that. Gee, mini.
You want to circle back?
I think it's a gar. No,
All
it's
right.
something eating, isn't it? Yeah. That happens sometimes. I have seen weird stuff
Gotcha.
with that technology. That's all I'm going to say. Do I know upon know that it's scientific? No. But does it cover boat noise? No. Does it?
Tracy, have you used the hydro wave?
I've not used it.
Gotcha.
You got a bite. Did you feel it?
I felt it.
It felt suspiciously like graphite.
What is the best time of year to fish Neely Henry, in your opinion?
Spring.
I'm kind of, yes, pre-spawn for me. February, March is my favorite.
Fall's good too if you like throwing a crankbait.
Yeah. I'm a deer hunter and I have to take a break to keep from going fishing crazy. So October I start fishing. I take a break from October till mid-December. So I don't fish much in the fall.
I don't hunt because I've never liked the taste of wild game very much. Don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Of course, the way things keep going these days, I may have to take it up and just be able to get something to eat.
I do it just to boost my kids. They enjoy getting outdoors and deer hunting, and it gives me an opportunity to get away from the lake, refocus, remotivated, re-energized. So that's the main thing for me. I like just sitting out there and just watching. I don't care a ton about catching or killing a deer. I just like being out there.
Fall with a crankbait around here can be a lot of fun.
Is it anything different when you're crappie fishing?
What do you mean, anything different?
Like a different time of the year, if you want to go have fun skipping to oxen?
Crappie fish a lot, but I know when I'm out, I see these guys catching them, and they were really catching them at that same time of year that I was talking about that I like to bass fish, that February, March timing. I see them catching them really good.
They move up a little earlier in the cooler water than the bass do.
Up until about the first week of May, right now, the crappie fishing is going to decline somewhat. One of my partners that I fish with a good bit, Mike Carter, he's a guide at Gunnersville, and he told me just a couple of days ago, I was asking him about a trip for some guys, and he said the crappie fishing for him really slows down in May. So
It just felt weird.
it didn't cost anything to slip it in.
It was a fish.
They had you crawl.
Turd.
Robbie Cook, what's going on, fellas?
There's spiders out here. Did you hear that?
Robbie,
First on camera.
do what?
I'll tell you later.
Gotcha.
Smell you later.
We don't have the smell-o-vision.
It's a new technology we're working to develop.
Excuse me.
Yeah, Robbie, let me know how's the kayak tournament going. For those of you that are kayak guys, I think most of the kayak guys I've seen jump in here probably already know we're running a monthly tournament now with Bucks Island. It's our second month. It's statewide, and it runs this month. We're doing every day of May, so you can fish any time of the day on any lake that you can legally fish with an Alabama license that's a public access lake. So we had some fun with that. And if you have no idea how you can run a fishing tournament a month long, then go do some research on how the kayak guys do things. So.
Big old snake coming at you, Michael, straight at you. It's right here, 10 feet in front of me.
Water snake or a copperhead?
Oh yeah.
Big old mean one. That thing.
Somebody get my pistol out. You sure that's a copperhead? It looks like a water snake.
They're all the same to me.
Yeah, I don't like snakes.
Bad ones, tell me if they floated, they were.
I don't think that's true. I've seen some studies done on that. Yeah. Snakes. But I do believe that's a water snake. I ain't gonna find out. Who was I talking to the other day? Oh, it was Randall Tharp. He was fishing that Pickwick Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit, and he had a copperhead come swimming at him, and he's not a fan of snakes either, and it actually went up his trolling motor shaft, and he figured he could go fast and make the thing come off his trolling motor shaft, so he kicked his trolling motor on high and turned it and took off towards the bank, and heard the on the prop. The tail was still under the water, and it ripped it off, and he turned around and looked, and he cut that thing up. He didn't cut it in half, but he cut that thing up, and the snake was sitting there going, "Hee." I started laughing. So
We've got
funny
25
stuff.
minutes. Could we idle 200 or 300 yards?
I don't care.
Sure.
Let's try a little different scenery. I'll just idle. I'll leave the water down and everything.
Well, y'all drop some questions in. We're going to crank up the big motor for just a second. Here.
Tournament rules. He just broke them because he didn't have his life jacket on before the motor started.
Oh. So what's making you want to move?
Well, we went 300 or 400 yards there and just no bites. You can see the terrain kind of changes in front of us there a little bit. It stops being boat docks, turns into just land and grass and closer to the river. I was going to go up here and just try a little bit different style of bank, where this is kind of riprap and docks. That's going to be just bank grass and river.
We're talking the island?
Probably stopped by the time it got good right through here. Little pocket there, looks a little better actually.
So in a tournament mindset, you make that decision to do something like this and move, and I hear you just kind of talking about, oh, that looks kind of good. What's kind of your philosophy on, do you go with that initial decision that got you going? How, do you get distracted and slow down and fish this little area? How do you kind of approach some of that?
You know, go with your gut feelings, what they always say. You hear everybody talk about that. Randy Howell up the Gunnersville on the Gunnersville Bridge. I mean, felt something, turned around, went back, wins the Classic. You know, I try to do that, but a lot of times it may be my ingenuitive mindset, and probably a gap on my end is once I go practice and I figure out what I want to do, I tend to stick with it pretty much. Some of your better fishermen, you know, ride down the lake. I think Jordan Lee is one of the greatest there is right now. Just rides down the lake, got every kind of rod he can think of in the boat. Oh, that looks good. Goes over and flips and catches something in 3 foot of water. You know, he's riding on down the lake, bridge piling, 25 foot with a drop shot or something. I'm not as instinctive as he is, as some of those guys that are great fishermen. Hence, that's why they do it all the time. And I'm stuck at Honda. But I try to go with those gut instincts when I feel them and think them sometimes, and that's kind of what happened back there. I just thought, we're done with this. We're not going to get another bite. We've got 25 minutes. Let's go try something completely different and see if we can get bit.
I know Mike Iaconelli and Gerald Swindle, they're some of the best. They call them junk fishermen in the business. And junk fisherman means that you may not run patterns, you just fish your instinct to try a bunch of different things. But Mike's philosophy is, if he thinks it, he does it. And Mike, for most people, if you see a bunch of rods on the deck, you kind of go, he didn't have nothing figured out, which is most of the time where I'm at. Anyway, Mike starts the day like that, because if he's going to think it, he wants to pick it up and try. And so, okay, let's say we got 25 minutes left in the day, and Tracy said, I was going to do that, but that point looks good. It doesn't cost him but 3 minutes to do that real quick. And we don't give ourselves enough credit for what we've learned on the water in general. And if you got a thought, it's because of experience that you've had, and you might as well give it a try, and it doesn't cost much time.
And it's surprising how often time it actually works out. More times than not it doesn't, but a lot of times it does.
Thing I heard was, if you practice your whole life to do something and it works one time, was that luck, or did it just, you practice for it?
Yeah. Good analogy.
I've practiced for years to annoy my wife, and I must say, I am proficient at it.
Perfected it.
I have perfected it, and I'm very creative. I'm always finding new ways too, and that's the best part.
Continuous improvement.
She's 3,000 miles or 2,500 miles away, and I've been annoying her for 6 weeks. It's wonderful. All kind of bait going on.
All right. Would you throw a buzzbait early or a spook style walking bait, and what color?
I'm kind of stuck on bone, I guess, more than anything. It's not that bright, super white. Got a little bit of a realistic look to it. Somewhat imitates a bait fish. So I'm probably hung up a little bit on bone on my spooks. And I tend to throw the spook a little bit more in open water, the bigger points and whatnot. And I'll throw the buzz bait when I'm going down a bank, throwing it around a little bit more cover and that kind of structure.
I like a buzzbait that is a toad buzzbait, and before I kind of wondered why were we doing this, but when somebody explained the reason that you do it, I noticed that it made a difference. When you have just a skirted buzzbait, fish will come up and suck at it sometimes, and they pull with a vacuum pull, and they pull the strands down and don't necessarily get the bait. But if you put that toad buzz on there, while it helps come through cover a little bit more, and it may create a little more action, it also gives something that they can positively suck when they pull that vacuum down. So I tend to throw that, and I like a white toad on there. So I do a buzzbait a lot, and I like the white, sometimes the gray. But I like a little translucence in my topwater baits. My hard baits. Chartreuse shad, ghost minnows type colors. I like those. But right here, I'd throw a buzzbait. Yeah. I mean, I might throw a walking bait outside of this and out over the point, but right here, I'd throw a buzzbait if I was looking topwater.
All right. Jeremy Conkright. So tell him no offense, but I'm a big guy. What life jacket do you have? I guess that Mustang is what he's talking about.
Yeah, so here, I'll give you. No offense, fatty. Don't worry, I understand. This is the hydrostatic, HIT. Here's the deal. I know a lot of people that go look for value and cheapness, and if you're important to your family or your friends, $350 is not too much to spend. If I care about my wife and kids and I want to be around for them, if a good life jacket cost me $1,000, I'd save up and get it. So, because it's your life you're talking about. But here's the deal. Do not ever, as a boater, get the ones that's only manual. You got to get the one that has the automatics in it. This is the hydrostatic, which is a water pressure thing here, not the pill. You know, they have those Alka-Seltzer style, and those tend to, they tend to degrade with humidity. So I always go with the hydrostatic. I think this was like $329. The onyxes are good, but there's another thing, and it's funny. So what's the flotation on this one? I think it's 32 pounds is what it is. So several years ago, there was an accident in the California Delta where a guy's life jacket didn't go off. Turned out he was a kayaker and he had the manual only. And he went out of the boat and he got knocked unconscious, so he couldn't pull it, so he died. But it started a conversation, or a thought process in my head about life jackets. And then several years ago in Florida, there was an accident with a gentleman that passed away during a national AAA tournament. And it was in the wintertime. And he was in his cold weather gear, and he drowned. And when they finally recovered him, he was suspended 6 feet off the bottom. So I don't know if you guys know anything about buoyancy of things, but water temperature makes a difference with it. So anyway, I called Mustang and I said, okay, if this says it floats it has 32 pounds of buoyancy, what does that mean? It means it floats 32 pounds. And I said, I'm a 300-pound guy. How does that work? And they said, well, here's the science of it. The human body is 80% water, so remove 80% of your weight because you're neutrally buoyant in the water with that. Then you take your fat content and you figure out what that percentage is of what's left, and you subtract that from it because fat floats in water. The rest of it is connective tissues and bone and stuff, and the average person weighs somewhere between 14 and 18 pounds, and then you add their clothes to it when they're wet. So that's how it works. So get the highest buoyancy level you can. Watch the clothing that you wear. If you wear a lot of jeans and you get them soaked wet, they go from being about 3 pounds to being about 10 in a hurry. I wear a lot of quick dry stuff with that purpose. I wear thin underlayers. I try to give myself, especially in the wintertime, I try to give myself as much room on this as I can. But the bottom line is buy the best you can afford because you want to be safe. But that's a hydrostatic Mustang. I'm not tied to any brands. It's just the best one with the most buoyancy that it was. That's why I have it. And they do make extensions on those.
I'm going to throw my life jacket thoughts in just as a guy who's been through Navy, naval aviation, water survival, and spent a little bit of his life flying and depending on such things. To what Dana was saying, auto deploy, that is 100%. There's no way you'd ever catch me with a manual deploy, because you've got to assume in a situation where you're fishing that you're going to be caught off guard. You're not going to be prepared, and worst case, you get knocked unconscious. Even if you stay alert, you may lose out. If it's cold and you're wearing layers, I don't care what brand it is, what manufacturer it is, this stuff that's going to hold water, I don't think I'd ever wear an inflatable unless it was as inflatable as what you would see in like what I flew with in the Navy. I'd get a full-on life jacket and wear it because you want, back to that buoyancy discussion. But
well, it does. And
anyways,
I think he's asking the question.
yeah, he's just looking for size and
and
how does it fit?
Those full flotation vests, they can be extremely uncomfortable for a big guy. I know Mustang, they made a big one. You'll have a little bit better flotation in a full life jacket. I will say this, in a high-speed accident, I don't know that would do much other than rip off of me.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider there. So,
in truth, what they need to do is they need to put the buckle here, but they also need to put a buckle up here, so that when you're in a high-speed situation, that I know what that's all about is comfort and flexibility for speed of shucking it, but they need to put a buckle up here too that allows for that to not get ripped off of your shoulder should you go out of the boat as easily.
all right, Tracy, we made the move. Where are the fish?
Not much activity here. We saw a little bait fish down there around the point, but so far no bites.
I just bumped a gar.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of gar.
And they're not moving. So that might mean that there's not enough activity in this. Again, hunches. If you're in a tournament right now, you'd probably already pulled stake and go, wouldn't
Yep.
you?
Well, let's see. What time is it? How are we doing on time?
12 minutes till.
All right. Well, guys, last few minutes, throw a comment in there. We are going to give away a couple of gift cards. And we need we need to end on some good fishing tips.
My best tip I could give, Michael, I mentioned it to Dano earlier kind of jokingly, but it's coming out with the right mindset. We knew it's tough right now. We didn't come out here thinking we were going to load the boat. We were pretty patient up through there. Didn't panic when we didn't get bit. Just kept trying. We're a little slower on reacting just mainly because of the camera, moving and changing stuff. But this time of year, you just got to have a lot of patience, especially if you're tournament fishing. It's okay to go 3 or 4 hours without a bite. I hate it as bad as the next guy does, but you've got to be able to work through that dead time and still be able to keep a positive mental mindset and always be ready for that bite, because that bite is going to happen when you're least expecting it. And just coming out with the right mindset. If you don't catch them, it's okay. To keep fishing, keep trying stuff, keep going with your gut, and use the experience that you have. Some may be more than others, but use what experience you have to make those decisions and keep fishing. That's the best piece of advice. And I talk to a lot of these high school anglers. That's one of the main things I tell them, because I see them getting frustrated, when they go out and don't catch them, and just kind of be done. No, keep on fishing. That's when you start learning. When it starts getting tough and you start piecing the puzzle together and picking up on little tips, that's when you start figuring out how to fish.
Well, and we've gotten, since we've been doing these lives, we've gotten a lot of good feedback from folks that to that very point. Because a lot of what you watch on YouTube or you've watched on TV, it's all the highlights of 3 days worth of fishing wrapped up into a 30-minute segment. Which there's nothing wrong with, and that's great, and it's a great way to teach techniques, but a lot of folks have really appreciated sitting out here for 2 hours watching you guys go through, figure out things, change your mindset. So,
well, I think a lot of it too, to kind of add to what Tracy said, I think a lot of times fishermen, we need to adjust our expectations. The top fisheries in the world produce less than 2 fish an hour on average.
shade the phone. All right, guys. Sorry we had a little technical difficulty with the phone overheating, which is not saying much considering it's only 83 degrees out here today. So we're going to have to figure something out for the summer. But
Shut off when I talk.
sorry about that.
Full of hot air.
But guys, let's do a quick summary, and then we'll head to the house or head back to the shop, whichever one we're doing. So.
All right, Tracy.
Good day. I mean, we talked about it earlier. It's tough conditions. It's post-spawn. The fish are a lot of non-aggressive fish right now cruising around, recovering from the spawn. we were able to come up through there, some hard bottom banks, kind of down a little lower where we started. Got a few bites there, 3 or 4 bites, and caught one pretty chunky fish there. But it's tough, and that's just kind of the way fishing is right now. But you got 8 hours of the day in most of these tournaments. If you can, catch a fish an hour or a fish every hour and a half or so, you can end up with 5 pretty good fish. And a lot of people wouldn't consider that a stellar day, but adjusting your expectations like we talked about is key right now. You're not going to come out and catch that 30-pound bag here. You're not going to come out and catch 30 or 40 fish right now. You've got to adjust and be prepared for what the reality is of that lake's potential on that day. So, thanks for letting me talk a little bit about some of the things I do. I don't claim that they're all the right things, but what works for me is what I've got confidence in. So go out and do whatever you've got confidence in, and go do it and have fun.
All I know is I'd like to I'd like to learn half of what you forgot. Guys, we're blessed at Bucks Island to have management that believes in sharing with you guys. We're blessed to have a great group of customers and friends that want to spend this time with us. And we're certainly blessed to have people like Tracy and Matt and Wes and Scott and some of the other pro staffers that we have that want to come up here and do these kinds of things and be willing to share, because to turn someone like Tracy loose on a lake like this to give away some secrets is it's hard to get some guys to do that. But first and foremost, we want to thank all of you that participate with us, that tune in when we do this kind of stuff. Thanks for Michael to stand here and hold the stinking camera while the two of us goof off. I always say I got one of the coolest jobs in the world because I'm working. Right now I'm working. Anyway, thank you. We will, can you see enough to be able to draw the winners?
Well, so I'm not going to be able to get to all those comments. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to get off of here, and as we get back to the ramp, you're just going to have to trust us. We'll scroll through, and we'll have Tracy randomly tell me to stop on the comments. So we're going to have to jump back over to that live, and I'll post it in the comments and reach out to those that we pick. So I think that's
You need to find that one question about the spawning thing, and I want to give an extra $25 gift card to that one, because that was a great question.
All right, we can do that. Well, guys, again, I'll leave it with, man, Dano's 100% right. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. I hope we'll see you soon in the shop or online with whatever questions, whatever stuff you need. And we appreciate you interacting. The feedback, honestly, is awesome. So thank you guys. Thank you, Tracy, for coming out here. We'll see you guys later. See ya.